And welcome to the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs. I'm Professor Susan Moffett. It's great to see you all here for our conversation on the role of the private sector and foundations in policy and foreign affairs with our two very distinguished guests. I'm honored and pleased today to introduce and welcome Michelle Sullivan and Pamela Reeves to the Watson Institute. Michelle Sullivan is the president of the Caterpillar Foundation and the director of corporate social innovation at Caterpillar Incorporated. She is well known for her global expertise and for her collaborative approach to philanthropic investing. She strongly believes monumental and sustainable change in our largest global challenges can only happen through partnerships and collaboration between public, private, and nonprofit entities, our subject matter for today. This strategy resulted in the Caterpillar Foundation's transformation into one of the most influential corporate foundations, and it resulted in the launch of the foundation's collaborative impact platform known as Together Stronger. Among her many, many accomplishments, Ms. Sullivan was named as one of the 50 most powerful women in philanthropy by Inside Philanthropy, and she served as a U.S. delegate to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're delighted and honored to have you join us today. And we're also grateful today to be joined by Watson Senior Fellow Pamela Reeves, who will be moderating our conversation today with Ms. Sullivan. Pamela Reeves advises international organizations, foundations, and companies on building public-private partnerships and developing gender strategies to achieve both business and public purpose results. She is the senior advisor for gender strategy to the executive office of Melinda Gates, and she is the former director of Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton's International Fund for Women and Girls at the United States Department of State. Previously, she served as a senior advisor to the Nike Foundation, where she created the Girl Declaration Program, which I know many of you have heard of. And earlier in her career, she served as the UN's Human Rights Officer in Liberia during that country's civil war. She has also served as an advisor to the election commissions of many different countries. We are honored at the Watson Institute to have her as a fellow here, and she's also a member of the Brown University Corporation. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Our time together will proceed as followed. Ms. Reeves will begin our conversation with Ms. Sullivan for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll open up the floor to questions and answers. But first, please join me in warmly welcoming Michelle Sullivan and
Thank you, Susan. And I just want to point out that we are triply distinguished today to have in our presence Susan Moffett, who has just recently been awarded a very prestigious research award in honor of her research here at Brown. So thank you for all you're doing. And welcome everybody. I see people from the International Relations Department, from IR, from the university, from the community. Thank you all for joining us. And Michelle, thank you. Susan's given us a little bit of your background, and I just want to say that I first became aware of Michelle's work and Caterpillar's work when I was at the State Department working for Secretary Clinton. But then she and I served together as U.S. delegates to the Commission on the Status of Women. I think that was 2012 or something.
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
15,
Yeah.
13, 14,
Yep.
whatever it was.
Time flies.
Time flies. It was in a different era. It was under a different administration. And it was really there that I saw the breadth of both the work that Caterpillar was doing and the vision that Michelle had and has about not just working in global development. It is now the era of the Sustainable Development Goals, with the Millennium Development Goals behind us, but her vision about people in general and the power of people and investing in human capital. And that is not something we see every day, sadly. But it is, I think, as you will tell us a little bit more about, one of the keys to, I think, our global success in terms of development and growth. With all of Michelle's accomplishments, you have really been credited with turning the Caterpillar Foundation around. And if you don't mind starting here, what was wrong with it to begin with? And where did you take it? How did we get there?
Yeah, thank you. This is, I've never been to Rhode Island. I was thrilled when I was invited to Brown, so thank you very much. It's always a privilege to do new things, and I always look for new things like this, so it was great when you, and coincidentally, this was the only week that my calendar was open for the next 5 months when she gave me the date. And our calendars get full as yours does too, so, it was meant to be. There wasn't anything wrong with the Caterpillar Foundation. We actually, everything is a journey. And I've been with the foundation 5.5 years. I've been with Caterpillar. I start my 30th year next month, in May, next week really now, right? So the first 25 years of my career was on the product side, the marketing and the dealer side. And just so you know, Caterpillar is a very global company, and we have 179 independent dealers. Every piece of the earth is covered by one of the 179 independent dealers. And we also work on the moon. We're working with NASA on Mars projects. We work at the bottom of the ocean, our products do. So we're pretty much everywhere, just to give you a breath. And we build infrastructure. We provide energy, transportation. And they're working on societal infrastructure. The foundation's working on the human infrastructure. Basic human needs, food, water, energy, education, and the environment are the 3 pillars that we have. And so, if you look at the last 6 to 7 years, philanthropy has really gone through a transition. Even when you see people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett are giving their money to very specific strategies. The world has changed. So before I came to the Caterpillar Foundation, and I'm the 4th person since 1952. It doesn't change very often. It's really the most coveted job at Caterpillar. I think my mom has the best job because she travels with me. So she has the best job at Caterpillar. But my dad retired from CAT. My sister works at CAT. We're an extremely relational company. Our dealers are usually passed on through the generations as well. So relationships is in our blood, in our yellow blood. So we were very transactional when I took over. And to give you some background, I have an MBA, a master's in business. And so when I came into the foundation, I treated it like a business. How do we get the most bang in terms of human infrastructure for the buck? We're like the Shark Tank. We get 5,000 requests a year from around the globe, and we maybe fund 300 to 400. And we invest where we have facilities around the world, and we have facility contacts. And they look at what their communities need, and then they send them in to us, and my team vets it to see if it's legal, etc. And is that the best program for whatever they want to invest in? So I decentralized that when I came in. We sent it to the facilities around the world so that they could decide what their community needed. We went to root cause investing. What is truly the root cause of the issue that they're trying to deal with? And I'll give you an example. We all know the local food bank, right? And we fund, by the way, a lot of food banks. But if you just keep funding the food bank, what's going to happen? Will much change? Not really. Why are the people at the food bank? That's what I mean by root cause investing. So while we're investing in the root cause of various issues, we're still providing food to the food bank. But over time, it should decrease, right? The needs of the food bank, if you're investing in an impactful way. So we went to root cause investing. We also created the collaborative platform of Together Stronger. Rarely in life, I don't know if young people will agree with this, rarely in life do you succeed all by yourself. Right? We like to think we do. I did that. Not really. There's a lot of people who have impacted your life along the way. And our platform is to bring in a lot of thoughts in different types of organizations, public, private, and cost sector, to really build a sustainable solution to whatever challenge we're dealing with. And within that, when you look at global poverty, extreme poverty, women and girls bear the brunt of that poverty. And when girls get married at 11, nothing good will come of that, for instance. And so, if half of your population is not educated, for example, your society will never thrive the way that it should. So, we knew that investing in girls and women was also a piece of our investment, not the whole piece, but there is a targeted piece of our collaborative platform where we make sure that we look at why girls aren't going to school in a certain area, for instance in Africa. A big reason is they're looking for water for 8 hours a day, and I've been there and I've done it. Where are the boys? Do you know where? They're in school. The girls are looking for water. So our water investments are aimed at taking away one of the reasons why girls aren't going to school. We're investing in water so that they also are allowed to go to school. When you think about your families, you don't have to raise your hand, especially the men. Who runs the family, the household? Who runs the schedule? Is it the man? The boys are laughing in the room, it's the men. It's the women usually, right? So as girls and women succeed, you can tell the impact on the family unit. And make no mistake, the family unit is a critical key to putting people on the path to prosperity. So we've been on a journey. There wasn't anything wrong. It just is a transition. And you know, when my time is over, the next person, there'll be another transition, right? So it's been a journey, and that's kind of been the last 5 years for us. And the final piece was, and I never appreciated this, I'll be honest, the power of policy, governmental policy. And I'm one that gets extremely frustrated with governments and policies. But I've also came to realize that when you start to work at the policy level of a government, of a country, you can make massive change with your funding. For instance, changing the laws by which a girl can be married by a certain age. $1 million grant can impact 30 million people in one country. So I've come to appreciate, and most corporations do not invest in policy, and I'm speaking out more about that, because the private sector can certainly have an influence and bring to light the power of change at the government level. And while it will take a long time for that to actually take effect, and it may be a generation, you have to start somewhere. And some advice, especially for the young people who want change right now. You will learn when you graduate that you have to learn patience. And when you do, and you come out with your opinions, etc., and you do it in a very patient, data-driven, collaborative way, you will make more change happen quicker if you do it that way than to go charging in and say, not only do I not agree with you, I'm going to show you. If you come in and say, can we talk about what the issues are and get all the sides together and think about how can we make true systemic change, you will find that it's much like what we're doing here. And you're gonna find that when you leave and find out how the real world works, that it's not black and white. And we have governments that believe it's okay for girls to get married at 11. We can't go charging in there as a Caterpillar Foundation. So what we do, we pull the data together. You know, when girls are educated, they're healthier, they have less children at a very early age. They are more likely to be involved in civic engagement, in leadership. The family does overwhelmingly better when they're educated. And when you start to show that it actually impacts the GDP of a government, do you think that gets their attention? I have a way to help your government, your GDP. Oh, really? How is that? Let me show you. As opposed to coming in, you know what? You need to do this and that. And people really need to sit back and show them what's in it for them. And that has been the work of our policy work, is to get the data and to show them what it means to their government. And that's been an eye-opener for me, to be honest. I guess I'm a little slow in that respect, but in this job, it's really opened up a lot for me for that.
So the idea that you would be slow at anything is pretty laughable, but thanks for sharing that. It's interesting what you say. We do see these positive results when we include, you know, disproportionately affected populations. Others seem to be slower to respond or to make it part of their bottom line or move it into their business practices than Caterpillar has. And I want to ask the question about if you think what Caterpillar is doing is replicable, but I want to approach it from the idea that Caterpillar is probably a little bit more today, but about a $40 billion company, right?
Right.
But you had a very good day today, so it might be a
We
big
did
day.
have a good day today.
And nonetheless, it's faced some challenges, some serious challenges this year, as companies do. Maybe some are unique. How does a corporate foundation convince the company and the shareholders, the stockholders, that responding to stakeholders' concerns and issues is just as valuable or valuable at all? Is it appropriate and responsible use of profit of shareholders' fees? Talk to us about that relationship.
You know, Caterpillar has had a foundation since 1952. It was an early adopter of corporate social responsibility. And Caterpillar Inc. is the sole funder of the foundation. So every December, I go to the board of directors, and based on projected sales and revenue for the next year, I ask for a percentage of the profit. And I explain what we've done in the past year, and I explain what we're going to continue to do. And interestingly, I don't talk so much about how much I spent on this grant or that grant. I talk about the impact in terms of the number of people impacted. So our aspirational goal is to impact 50 million people by 2020, and we're at 36 million right now. A large part of that is due to our policy work. And an example is we invested in an agriculture grant on the continent of Africa, where the countries a decade ago had committed to spending X percent of their GDP in agriculture. And in Africa, agriculture is the #1 impact on people in terms of entrepreneurship, food, etc. Has a huge impact on the continent. And so we worked on a grant that worked with the governments where it actually increased their commitment to agriculture. For instance, Tanzania committed another 2% of their GDP to invest in agriculture across the country. That was a huge win. So Caterpillar has, early on, we're adopters of, we must give back. And we give back everywhere. Everywhere we have facilities, that's where we are placing our investments. And the company, the employees, in one of our values of commitment, it talks about that we are expected to be productive citizens of our communities and be active. So our volunteerism has a huge impact. We have 95,000 employees around the world. When you look at those employees going out around the world into their communities, you can see that the impact is very vast as well in terms of time. So for us, of course, when you have revenue and you make a profit and the shareholders are benefited with the stock, I go in December ahead of all of that and ask for money for the foundation. My hand is first. And as the company goes, so goes the funding. In these last 5 years, the company's been under some pressure with our business, and we have pulled back on the foundation. But because of the way we've invested during this time, and you will learn this through life, during the toughest times, you will learn more than you ever have. And that is when we started looking at policy grants. So even when our revenue into the foundation has declined, our impact has grown exponentially because of how we've invested. So it's been there from the start for us.
And is that, your ability to do that, do you attribute that to the power of Caterpillar itself as one of our most visible and important companies? Is it because you've run the foundation in a way that other companies don't run their corporate foundations?
It's a combination of both. Caterpillar is a huge iconic brand. We are building the infrastructure around the world. That road out there was probably built by Caterpillar machines, right? This building, the energy, if we went outside, your backup power probably is a 3500 generator from Caterpillar. So if we lose power, Caterpillar's probably generating the power, the backup power for this building. We're the backup power to the UN. We were the power when NASA landed on the moon and they communicated back that they landed. All of that was powered by a generator within the module back then. So for us, we build things and provide energy, and we're restoring natural infrastructure everywhere. So for us, a natural extension of that is people. We can build all we want, but if your people aren't prospering and on the road to prosperity, it doesn't work. Those are two gears that work together. You have human infrastructure and you have societal. You need both to work hand in hand. And so for Caterpillar, it's always been that way. Now we have transitioned the foundation. It's a journey, right? So the last 5 years, it has changed, unlike most corporate foundations. But I'm speaking more and more on that as we go. And it's funny, people go, what do you care about root cause investing? What's the difference between an output and an outcome? So if 20 students go to your class, is that success? That's an output, right? 20 students went to class. All right, I'll give them 10,000. Now I have 300 other grants. The outcome is, what was the change in knowledge or behavior of those 20 students? That is what we fund. If you can tell me what the change in knowledge or behavior was as a result of your curriculum, and you're the highest, then we'll fund you.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you in 6 months after my classes are over.
All right, you tell me that. You tell me that. But, right, there's a difference between an output and an outcome. And a lot of people think corporations have unlimited money. That's not true. And I run the foundation like I ran the business unit I was in. I want to know the return on that investment. The employees made that profit, and customers, I owe it to them to run it the best that we can. Right? We have to help the most people possible. That's the end goal. How can I make that dollar go as far as I can go when there's 1 billion people living in extreme poverty today? So when I look at 100 water grants. I want to know, how do I get the most for our dollars? And that's how we do it. We're the Shark Tank.
I want to ask you a question about the government today.
Is
And
that a hot topic?
no. It more than the government. It's about today's global realities, right? So we know that there is a good chance foreign assistance is going to actually be cut, not just talked about.
Right, right.
It's only less than 1% of our budget anyway.
Yeah.
But we know that there's going to be a domino effect. We know that even PEPFAR in the State Department has a good chance of being sliced and diced.
Right.
So when that happens, talk to us about the responsibility, if any, of the private sector, and about how these kinds of relationships, government, private sector, civil society, what's the stress, what's the impact, what happens?
Yeah. Well, I'm from the proud state of Illinois. So, we have been dealing with government challenges, I'll put that.
I was waiting for the
Government challenges for quite a while now. And it's interesting, people ask me, I'm with the foundation, I must be Democrat or whatever. And you work at CAT, you must be Republican. What are you? I'm a collaborator. Period. And when I say that, the state of Illinois has had large cuts already. So we've been in this geopolitical atmosphere for quite some time. But to my earlier comment about the decline in the funding to the foundation in the last few years, we have invested even smarter because of it. So I do believe there will be some cuts in the federal government, and it will have ramifications. However, I do believe that if we continue to do the public-private partnerships with the cost sector, and I'll give you an example. The Caterpillar Foundation funded the first African Women's Entrepreneur Center in Africa. We worked with the State Department, and they worked with a not-for-profit called Startup Cup that actually opened up an entrepreneur center in Lusaka, Zambia. And it was just like here in your business class. I went there with the State Department. The women had their business plans, their need for capital, everything that all of you would have. 2,000 women went through that center in the first month, right? But it took money from the Caterpillar Foundation, the State Department to help organize the money, and then the right not-for-profit that could get it done. Now in the United States, a big problem, to your point, and it's going to become a bigger problem, affordable housing is a huge issue, and it's going to become a bigger issue when people have to spend even more money to get their own food or health care. Did you know that in the United States, write this down, 41 million people spend more than 30% of their take-home pay on rent. Now, you're in college and you have a dorm. You can't relate to that yet, right? But you will. Who's graduating this year? You email me next year and you let me know how your rent's going. Right? You want the new car, right? You want a cool apartment downtown. And wait till you pay rent compared to your income. Now you look at people living in poverty, which is under $30,000 a year for a family of 4. And they're paying over 30% in rent. Do you know what that means? That means there's trade-offs. Can they buy their medication? Can they afford the insurance on their car or the public transportation? Do they buy a decrease in groceries because of their rent? So we're working in the United States with the government's, Pamela, to your point. These cuts are going to have real life impact. Now, Caterpillar can't make up that. We can't make up that gap. But what we can do is work in certain areas with, you become experts in data when you work in philanthropy. Where does your dollar go the strongest? And what has the most impact in terms of getting these people on the actual path to prosperity? And that's why you and I were in the State Department on the Commission on the Status of Women. We talked explicitly about what was working. So I was on the plane here yesterday, and my congressman was on the plane. And he said, Michelle, and as you can tell, I'm not shy about talking about the issues. Thank you for that email when we were voting on the health care repeal. Your data on what that cut would mean to people living in poverty and how the repeal was actually impacting them disproportionately to those who are above the poverty line. So that's how you make a difference. You don't go in, shouting and saying this and that. You present yourself, and then you compromise. And that's what we will continue to do, with our funding, is find that. But you're right, it will have an impact. It will have an impact. We really don't take sides. We work with what's been given, and we try to influence, in the right way. And that's how we do it.
And before we go to questions, I just have one sort of last area, because I think it really informs a lot of what you're talking about. So you gave a remarkable TED Talk last fall, and I encourage you all to watch it, in which you encouraged all of us to embrace our own challenges and each other's challenges, and to reach out a hand to one another. I'm not doing this justice at all. You need to watch it. It sounds like you've taken a personal perspective, perhaps, of your own, and brought it into the workplace, or the work of the foundation, or maybe it's the work of the foundation that influenced you. Can you talk about that? You've got a lot to say, and I think that this human-centered perspective may.
I knew early on in my life, I have a very rare type of dwarfism. There's less than 100 people diagnosed with it in the world. And with that, you get certain judgments, right? I mean, I'm Caterpillar's smallest employee, and I have probably the most visible job on a daily basis at Caterpillar out of 95,000 people. And would you guess that Big Yellow would have a little person come in? It's quite funny sometimes when people don't know about me before I come in, and they're looking around waiting for somebody, and I come rolling up. Hey, here I am, right? And I also know that had I been born in a lot of other countries, one, I probably wouldn't be here today. Two, I certainly would not be educated. I would not have received the health care I have today. And when you combine that with being born into a very supportive family, I'm a very lucky person from being a dwarf. When you look at it from being a person, we all are lucky in many ways. And through this, I knew before I took this job how fortunate I was in so many ways. When you go and see what I see, and I go deep into a lot of areas around the world where they don't have anything that we would consider anything, and yet they still have the love of their family, which to me, you have everything at that point. So my TED Talk is about, you don't know what someone's going through. You think you do. And you think that my biggest challenge is I don't walk very well. But you have no idea what my challenges are, really. And I don't know what yours are. People are dealing with financial difficulties you don't know. People are dealing with infertility problems. They're dealing with aging parents. They're dealing with teenagers. People are dealing with their gender identity, right, today. And they're being allowed to be more public, which is a great thing. And at the end of my talk, I talk about that we are judging people and placing them in silos based on biases and ideologies. And in my talk, I don't think you can walk in my shoes. You can try to walk in my shoes. I can't walk in yours. I don't think you can walk in my size 1. But what we can do is be understanding, and instead of judging people and forcing ourselves and opinions on people, that if we stop and listen and truly try to understand people, and you walk beside each other, and in philanthropy, that's what we do, we get a lot farther than if you try to judge someone only by what you can see. That's what my TED Talk is about.
Well, thank you. And I think that's a lot of what the foundation is about.
And that's exactly, I mean, you know, everybody has challenges. And your challenges change throughout your life. Life is about a journey, and your challenges will change, right? Definitely.
I think it would be a great time to turn to questions, if anybody has any. Michelle, I feel sweet.
I do. So I was wondering if you could talk with us a little bit more about some policy grants and examples. I wondered if you could give us an example of one that you thought went very smoothly, that was maybe a model of other kinds of policy grants. I'd love to hear about one that did not go smoothly, that there were bumps along the way.
Yeah.
Was it a learning opportunity from that perspective?
You know, policy going smoothly is like an oxymoron, right? So, a very successful grant was the agriculture. That covered the continent of Africa. It truly got commitments from the government to put into agriculture. Last year, energy, Caterpillar, a third of our business is about power. And we worked on a policy grant to pass Electrify Africa legislation, which incites companies to invest in power in Africa. And it will bring 50 million people power on the continent. That was very successful. Ones that haven't worked, we've only been doing it about 2 years, so we've had more, really the ones we've done have been successes. But I'm sure there will be one that didn't quite cut the mustard at some point. But when they do, the impact is massive. It's just massive. I've really come to appreciate it, including with our government. We're working, on where we can influence our own government as well.
That's great.
Yeah, I just following on Susan's question. You said you receive around 4,000 proposals a year and you fund around 300.
Say that again?
You said you receive around 4,000 proposals
Yeah.
per year and you fund around 300 or 400.
Right.
What really catches your eye in a proposal if we're writing one? What are your recommendations?
Well, it has to be within our pillars, right? Basic human needs, education, or the environment. It's got to usually where we have facilities. And then it really comes down to the ROI and the health of the organization. We really study the business plans of these not-for-profits. I had a not-for-profit that 95% of their costs were admin costs, meaning overhead. So only 5% was going to work. Well, that one went in the garbage. So, we're business people, so we know how to read these statements. And they have to really prove that they can do the work, that they're financially in a good situation, and that, you know, not every grant goes according to plan. And if it takes longer to actually implement, we have no problem with that, just tell us, and we'll extend it. You know, it's not like we drop you if something doesn't go well. And not everything goes according to plan. So when that happens, my team asks, you know, what could we do better? You know, what can we change? And we'll fund them again. So it doesn't always go according to plan, and that's okay. We don't drop it if there's good reason. You know, we have partners that we've been partnered with for 25 years. We are deeply relational, and we truly are looking for partners, not just people to give money to.
That's great. Did I see?
So when you talk about having these policy relationships and looking at the policy grants, are you doing some of the evaluation of policy in-house? Are you developing any policy, or are you looking to partner with policy type organizations who are doing a and then what is it that you want them to do? Is it environment? Is it holistic? Is it education?
We do everything through partners. You know, usually the partners come to us. Or we know a certain area that we want to work in, and we'll do research to find the most impactful organization. So it works both ways. But, you know, all the implementation goes through the partnership. We fund it, and it does help when, you know, they know that the Caterpillar brand is behind that. We feel it's important. People take notice of that. And other companies take notice. If Caterpillar's coming in and believes, you know, they need this or that in that area, other companies take notice. So we'll take the lead. You know, it takes courage, but we'll take the lead.
And policy, you also mean global, right, at the UN level?
Yes, at the UN level. I was just at the UN International Women's Day in March. I was at the UN with Armenia. And the Assistant Secretary General, we were on the United Nations floor, and I spoke specifically about the importance of education and how we must continue to focus on that to build sustainable change. So that was an example of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your comments, both of you. I thought they were very interesting. My comment relates to how you tie impact of your investments, not only to the greater good, but to the actual shareholder value of the categories and stock.
Right.
So I understand impact investing in terms of promoting good just generally, but what type of process do you use to tie it back to shareholder value?
Well, we talk about it, and we talk to shareholder groups, and we explain, you know, what Caterpillar is involved in. And we talk to the employees as well. We talk to customers. In Balma, last fall, is the largest construction show in the world. And we had a piece of the ground in between two of the largest exhibition halls, so everybody had to go by this exhibit of ours. And we had yellow jerry cans of water. They weighed 40 pounds apiece, and that's what girls carry. And we had Charity Water. They're the organization that provides water in that type of circumstance. And customers were invited to walk in the shoes of someone that looks for water. And they carried these cans 100 feet. You think they were dying. And we have 8-year-olds carrying them for 8 hours, right? But you know what came of that through the customers is we didn't know that Caterpillar did this. And then they wanted to know about Charity Water. So we do different things like that to show the employee, the shareholders, customers, what we do. Because we think it's a good thing. And if you want to, please join us. If not, whatever you're passionate about, go after it. You know, find the best organization, use your education to help these not-for-profits be the best that they can be. There's a lot of passionate people in not-for-profits. They also need business acumen. They need that. They really need that. And Our employees help our not-for-profits with that. They volunteer on boards everywhere around the world to help not-for-profits be the best that they can be as well. So think about when you leave here, what are you passionate about? How can you use what you're good at and go help whatever it is that you're passionate about? And then when you go home, look in the mirror. And did you make a difference? Right? And did you do it in the right way? And did you do it in a collaborative way? Because that's important. We're losing that. I really feel we're losing that in today's world. Where we have two sides. And it's a circle.
Building on that point, you mentioned one of the themes here is the relational nature or culture of Caterpillar as a company. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about how Caterpillar cultivates that and embeds that in its business practice.
We are a very generational company. We just had a gentleman get a 65-year pin. We didn't have one. We had to have one made. Our pins don't go to 65 years. They do now. And, it's in our DNA. The dealers are family. The employees are family. You get a global experience and, your whole family's involved with, all the business. And when you go out today and you see a Caterpillar, I hope you think about it today, right? Caterpillars everywhere, and it's great to feel that, we're helping, build and provide for people. And so it's just, my sister, like I said, works there. It's truly relational, and we deeply depend on that relationship. We care about each other. When you come in the morning, if something happens, I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, it was November 17th, Sunday morning, in Peoria, Illinois, which is south of Chicago. It was 75 degrees, which is not normal. And a tornado blew through our town. Now, I live in Washington, which is right next to Peoria. And 1,200 people were impacted and lost their homes. I looked out my window, it was coming right at my house. I can't run. There wasn't much I could do. And as it was coming, you could hear it, it's like a freight train, and then took a turn, and it went down a different street. There were almost 700 Caterpillar employees impacted. And within an hour, all of Caterpillar, there's 12,000 employees in Peoria that work in Caterpillar. And when you put that out to families, pretty much, the joke is when Caterpillar sneezes, Peoria gets a cold. And within an hour, everybody was within that 3-block area getting people out. And truly rebuilt the town within a year. And that, you go running over there because my chief operating officer lost her home. She lived just across the highway from the owner. And, all we could think of, we went to the danger. And you go running, and that's the kind of environment that we have.
Thank you so much for your comments. And I would echo that collaboration is incredibly important, and it seems to be win-win, which is unfortunate. I'm curious about your collaborative efforts in the environment. Specifically, how do you push past any partisan division maybe when investing in environmental organizations or policies? Have you experienced any fractious political terrain there? Or?
No, when you work with the Nature Conservancy, Ducks Unlimited, organizations like that are truly working on the natural infrastructure, whether it's along the shorelines, trying to, fix them so that the erosion doesn't continue, or along the riverbanks. Also, when you look at any successful community, has to have successful waterways, right? Especially in the developing world where they depend on the water to drain, that it has to have fish so they can have jobs and also food. So when you look at those types of grants that you're either trying to preserving or restoring the natural infrastructure, there's sometimes debate as to how to do it, right? We all have opinions. But when you also look at the scientific research, it's usually clear what the best practices has produced in terms of an outcome. So, those are two of our major partners is Nature Conservancy, Ducks Unlimited, and they're doing fantastic work. And the TNC is global. We're working on the Yangtze River in China right now to help provide and make sure that river is such a vital piece as it goes right through the middle of China. It has a huge impact on the environment, and we're impacting that ourselves. And then in the Illinois River here, and we have investments in California. We have a very broad portfolio of environmental grants.
I'm just curious, does any of that work happen directly through corporate or is it all the foundation?
It's both. The corporation, also impacts communities directly, but the majority goes through the foundation with that.
And is there a formula for domestic U.S. and global in the foundation, or is it?
It is. It's a percentage of employees, domestic and international, and the dollars follow that. Right. So 52% of our employees are outside the U.S., so 52% of our funding goes to those communities.
Do you have any more questions or topics to raise? We do.
Yeah, so this is more about the investing in girls and women part of the company. I'm wondering what the feedback was, I guess, generally, but also within the foundation when you decided to make investing in girls and women a central component of the foundation, and whether it took convincing even from socially progressive countries or places that say they believe in social and gender equality. Did it take a lot to, especially as a woman and with a woman president of the company, did you receive skepticism, or did it take a lot to convince people that it's a worthy investment?
Well, yes and no. When you think about, for instance, access to water, we don't put a sign up that says boys can't come to the well, right? Everybody gets access to water. It does definitely impact the girls so they can go to school. So when you think about and present the data in terms of the impact on the GDP, their health, the family, etc., people don't disagree. They don't disagree. And it's not we don't just do grants, all the grants have to impact girls and women, they impact everyone. But for instance, with the United Nations Foundation, we invest in a program called Girl Up. That is what I mean by a specific grant for that. But in terms of when you really present it, and when I said in here, who runs the family at home, it was funny how everybody's firm. Right? Do you ever say that who runs your family at home? If you were to tell your buddies, our moms really, run the household, right? We don't talk about it, but we generally acknowledge it in most households, right? So when you talk like that and present it like that, most people would agree. Now Caterpillar, is traditionally a more male-dominated industry, obviously, but it's not like that, like it was before. Women are a very important part of Caterpillar, and and everybody bought into it. So we really didn't have a challenge with that, even all the way to the top. Our CEO, his wife, is a major commercial developer. She brings the bacon. So, and he'll tell you, he retired at the end of last year, that, she's the smartest woman he knows. He knew, and he knows. So when you have that kind of support, you know, obviously it trickles down.
All right, well, I think we're out of time. But Michelle, thank you so much.
Oh no, this has been great. I love the campus. I went to Bradley University, which is a private university, and it has about 6,500 students. So this reminds me a lot of the university that I went to, and I love the smaller university. So this has been really fun.
Did it rain every day there?
It's not. No, we didn't actually. we did like 80, which is unusual for us. So I was surprised when I checked the weather.
Well, welcome to
I
Providence.
pulled my sweater back out. I have to admit, I had packed it away. So, but you know, it's still a beautiful. I've never been to Providence. This is fantastic.
Well, welcome.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.